I vividly remember the disappointment in my grandson's eyes when I had to tell him I could not play outside. He was holding his favorite toy train and looking up at me with so much hope in his face. And I just sat there on the edge of the bed, thinking that I am completely failing at this. I felt like I was failing as a grandfather because I was just too exhausted to be present in his life. The hard truth is that the chronic lack of sleep was slowly stealing my personality and my daily joy.
Being completely too tired to be present for the people who matter most to you. For millions of Americans across the country, that heartbreaking feeling is exactly how every single day begins. It is a heavy and overwhelming fatigue, born in the quiet and lonely hours of the night. A peaceful night of rest, constantly broken by relentless and frustrating trips to the bathroom. You might think waking up 3 or 4 times a night is just an unavoidable part of getting older. You might even silently blame yourself for drinking a small glass of water too close to bedtime. But what if the real culprit causing your exhaustion is actually hiding in plain sight, right on your dinner plate? Today we are going to explore why your kidneys might be working significantly harder while you are trying to rest. We are sitting down with our medical expert to explain the fascinating connection between heavy dinners and broken rest.
Most people focus entirely on a weak bladder when the real issue actually starts with an overloaded kidney filtration system. Once you understand how your evening meals impact this delicate system, you may start to understand your sleep patterns much better.
We will also reveal a highly effective and natural dietary strategy using a very ordinary green papaya. It is a remarkably gentle approach that can be a valuable part of supporting your kidney health from the inside out. More importantly, it might be a helpful step in your journey to support your energy levels and independence. Stay right here with us, because this conversation could offer you a new perspective on how to support your sleep and kidney health. John, that is such a powerful and vulnerable thing to share with us today. I think so many people watching right now can relate to that feeling of failing their loved ones because of exhaustion. Before we dive into the science of what was happening, let us take a step back. What did a typical night and the following day actually feel like for you during that time?
To be honest, a typical night for me was not really a night at all. It was more like a series of forced naps that never felt long enough. I would go to bed at 10 and be wide awake by 1 in the morning. Then I would be up again at 3 and then again at 4:30. It was just a constant cycle of going up and down to the bathroom.
That sounds incredibly draining for anyone to go through.
The walking part was actually not the worst part of the experience. The worst part was lying back down and staring at the ceiling in the dark. I would lie there, knowing I only had an hour or so until the next alarm went off. And by the time the sun came up, I felt like I had not slept a single minute.
And how did that exhaustion bleed into your waking hours the next day?
It was like living my entire life through a thick gray fog. I would walk into a room and completely forget why I was even there. My wife would tell me something important, and it would just slip right out of my mind. I stopped enjoying my woodworking and my gardening because I was too tired to focus. It really felt like my entire world was shrinking smaller every day.
I am sure you tried all the common advice we always hear about. Things like cutting back on water late in the evening.
Oh, I tried everything you can imagine. I stopped drinking anything after 6 in the evening. By the time I woke up, my mouth felt as dry as sandpaper. But even with a dry mouth, I was still getting up 3 times a night. Nothing seemed to work, and I felt completely stuck in that cycle.
Dr. John's story is something we hear from so many of our viewers. From a clinical perspective, what exactly is happening here?
We're looking at a classic and often misunderstood case of nocturia. But the key point is that it is not just a simple physical symptom. It creates a cascading effect on daytime fatigue and cognitive function. When you break your sleep cycles that many times, your brain never reaches deep recovery. This is a significant quality of life issue that we should never just dismiss. It is not just an inevitable part of getting older.
So if it is not just age and cutting back on water does not work, people feel hopeless. John, what was the specific moment when you knew you had to find a different way? What was that final breaking point for you? John, thank you for being so incredibly open about how this affected your family life. Take us to that specific moment when you realized you could not accept this as your reality anymore.
It happened during a road trip my wife and I had been planning for many months. This was supposed to be our first big celebration after I finally retired. But once we got on the highway, we had to pull over almost every single hour. I could see the frustration building in her eyes, even though she tried so hard to hide it. I felt like an anchor weighing us both down instead of being a partner on an adventure.
That must have been incredibly lonely, even with her sitting right there next to you.
The real breaking point came that night when we finally checked into our hotel. It was the same exhausting story of being up and down to the bathroom all night long. The next morning I looked at her and said, "You go ahead and see the sights without me." I told her I was just too exhausted to even leave the room. Sitting alone in that quiet hotel room, I felt a profound sense of loss for my freedom. I realized I was losing my life and my relationships to a problem I could not control.
So what did you do differently when you finally got back home after that trip?
I made an appointment with my doctor, but I did not ask for another sleeping pill this time. I looked him in the eye and asked, "What exactly are we missing here?" He sat down and went over my food diary with a level of detail I had never seen before. Then he said something that completely changed the way I looked at my health. He told me the problem might not be what I was drinking, but what I was eating for dinner.
Your dinner. That is a perspective most of us would never even consider.
Exactly. We need to completely shift our focus to find the real answer. Most people naturally assume that waking up constantly is a bladder capacity issue. But in reality, this is very often a kidney filtration issue hiding in plain sight.
That makes sense. But how exactly does our dinner affect that filtration process?
Let me give you a visual analogy that makes this incredibly easy to understand. Imagine your two kidneys are the high-tech filter for a luxury swimming pool. In this scenario, your blood is the water that needs to be kept perfectly clean. During the day, your body handles normal waste like a few leaves falling into the pool. But a heavy dinner is a completely different story for your internal filtration system. Eating a large steak with salty sides is like dumping a bucket of thick mud into that pool. And you are doing this right before the pool is supposed to close for the night.
So instead of shutting down, the filter has to work all night to clean up that massive mess.
Precisely. Your kidneys are forced to work significantly harder to process everything while you sleep. They are desperately trying to filter out all the metabolic waste from digesting that heavy protein. They also have to process all that excess dietary salt you just consumed. This intense nighttime filtration process requires a significant amount of water. Your body uses that water to flush the waste out of your system as urine. And all of that newly produced fluid is sent directly down to your bladder.
Wow. So the bladder is just doing its normal job by holding what the kidneys send down.
Exactly. Your bladder is not actually weak or broken in this particular situation. It is simply being constantly refilled by kidneys that are working a stressful midnight shift. You are not waking up because your bladder is unexpectedly failing you. You are waking up because your kidneys are working way too hard while you try to rest.
That is a complete paradigm shift for anyone dealing with this frustrating issue.
John, I want to bring you back into this conversation for a brief moment. Thinking back to those difficult years, can you recall what your typical dinners used to look like?
Oh, absolutely. I have always been a classic meat and potatoes kind of guy. My plate was usually piled high with heavy roast beef or thick pork chops. And I would always add a very generous amount of salt to make everything taste better. I honestly thought I was just eating a hearty meal to end my long working day.
From a clinical perspective, That combination can significantly increase the workload on your kidneys. That high protein and high sodium combination forces your body to create more urine to clear the waste. It completely disrupts the natural resting phase your internal organs desperately need at night.
This entire explanation is a powerful game changer for our understanding of sleep. So if a heavy and savory dinner is the main problem here, what are our real options? Does this mean we have to eat completely boring and bland food for the rest of our lives?
Not at all. You absolutely do not have to eat boring or bland food forever. It is not about punishing yourself. It is simply about being smarter with your choices. It is about choosing specific foods that are naturally easy on your filtration system. Then this is exactly where certain traditional foods become incredibly fascinating. Take the ordinary green papaya, for example, which has been used for generations. It is certainly not a magic cure, but it operates on a very clear biological principle.
Which biological principle are we talking about here? What makes the simple green papaya so remarkably special in this specific context?
The secret is that it is incredibly rich in a natural enzyme called papain. In the medical community, we refer to papain as a proteolytic enzyme, which is just a scientific way of saying it actively helps break down tough proteins. So when you include a little bit of green papaya in your evening meal, a shift happens. You are essentially giving your entire digestive system a very helpful head start. The heavy proteins from your dinner are broken down much more efficiently. This means there is significantly less metabolic waste for your kidneys to filter out later. You are easing their heavy nighttime workload before the stress even begins.
So you are actively lightening the load on that swimming pool filter from the very start. That makes perfect sense because it is a completely proactive approach. You are stopping the mess from overwhelming the system rather than just reacting to it.
Exactly. It is about gently supporting the natural processes of your body. We want to work with our internal organs instead of constantly fighting against them. When we reduce that digestive burden, the kidneys can finally rest and do their job peacefully.
Okay, the science behind this natural enzyme is undeniably compelling. John, this is the exact dietary path you started on to reclaim your sleep. So for everyone watching right now who is finally feeling a real sense of hope, let's get incredibly practical and bring this strategy right into the kitchen. How do we actually turn this incredible fruit into a simple and supportive evening meal? What is the one actionable thing we can all do to support our kidneys tonight?
The simplest way to start right now is what I like to call the golden move. It is essentially just boiled green papaya served with a light sprinkle of sesame salt. This specific combination is incredibly gentle on your entire digestive and filtration system.
That honestly sounds a lot less intimidating than completely overhauling my entire diet. Let us walk everyone through the actual process right now. How exactly do we prepare this if we have never cooked a green papaya before?
It really could not be any easier to put together in your own kitchen. You simply take a small portion of a firm green papaya and carefully peel the skin. After you scoop out the seeds, just cut the remaining flesh into medium-sized chunks. Drop those chunks into a pot of boiling water for just a few minutes. You are looking for them to become tender, very similar to a cooked potato.
Okay, that takes care of the papaya part. What about the seasoning you mentioned?
While the papaya is gently boiling, you can quickly make your topping. Lightly toast some plain sesame seeds in a dry pan until they smell fragrant. Then roughly grind them together with just a tiny pinch of natural sea salt. Drain the soft papaya, place it on a nice plate, and sprinkle that sesame salt right over it. And that is the entire process from start to finish.
Wait a minute. That is the entire meal you are suggesting for dinner? Just the boiled fruit and a little bit of toasted sesame seeds?
That can be a highly supportive and light dinner for someone struggling with kidney overload. It is highly hydrating, incredibly easy to digest, and very low in sodium. It essentially gives your hard-working kidneys the peaceful night off they desperately deserve. While this is a gentle dietary support, remember that it works best when integrated into a lifestyle recommended by your healthcare provider.
I can honestly tell you from personal experience that it feels surprisingly satisfying. You do not go to bed feeling heavy or bloated like you do after a huge steak. You actually wake up the next morning feeling light and clear-headed.
I want everyone watching at home right now to really think about this for a second. How incredibly simple and accessible is this strategy? You absolutely do not have to overhaul your entire life or your pantry tomorrow. You do not have to buy expensive supplements or join a complicated program. Just commit to trying this one simple meal for just one night this week. See for yourself how your body actually feels the next morning when you wake up. It sounds incredibly simple, almost too good to be true. Doctor, as with any dietary change, there are always right ways and wrong ways to do things. What are the most common mistakes people make when trying to incorporate green papaya into their diet?
That is a critical point, because we need to focus on sustainable balance here. One of the most common mistakes I see is the mindset that more is always better. People naturally think that if a small amount is good, then a huge bowl must be great. But eating way too much raw or cooked green papaya can actually cause severe digestive upset. Your stomach needs time to properly adjust to these highly active natural enzymes. The actual goal is just a small and supportive portion, maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
So we should definitely not treat this as a strict daily prescription then.
Not at all. Your body thrives on dietary variety and gentle support over time. Mistake number 2 is completely drowning this beautiful ingredient in heavy sauces. People often order a green papaya salad thinking they are making a very healthy choice. But those restaurant recipes are frequently loaded with hidden salt, fish sauce, and sugar. Doing that completely defeats the entire purpose of this gentle dietary strategy. The ultimate goal is to drastically reduce the metabolic load on your overworked kidneys. You really do not want to just swap out one heavy nutritional burden for another one.
That makes perfect sense. We have to strictly protect the simplicity of the dish itself. What about the common belief that adding this one single food is a quick fix for all your problems?
Relying on a single food as a miracle cure is easily the biggest mistake of them all. There is no single ingredient on earth that can outwork a consistently poor lifestyle. Green papaya is an incredibly powerful tool to keep inside your daily wellness toolbox. But it works best when it is combined with a solid foundation of overall lifestyle support. You have to look at the entire picture of how you treat your body throughout the day. We are talking about getting moderate daily exercise, like taking a gentle evening walk. You also need to maintain adequate and consistent hydration during your active daytime hours. And you absolutely must actively manage your total salt intake across all of your daily meals. This is not a magic bullet. It is simply one highly effective part of a smarter way of living.
That is such a beautiful and important framework for all of us to keep in mind moving forward. It really is about adopting a much more holistic approach to our health rather than seeking quick fixes. Now, just to be completely safe and responsible with the medical information we share today, are there any specific individuals who should be much more cautious or avoid green papaya entirely?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up, because it is absolutely crucial. I want everyone watching to remember that this is a food-based support strategy. This is not, and should never be considered, a replacement for actual medical treatment. Anyone dealing with a pre-existing medical condition must be very careful. This is especially true for those with advanced kidney disease or severe stomach issues. You should absolutely never make significant dietary changes without consulting your physician first. And for expecting mothers, raw green papaya contains a natural latex that can be highly problematic.
So the absolute golden rule here is to always have an open conversation with your doctor.
Always. Because your doctor is the only one who truly knows your full health history. Do not look at this video as a prescription, but rather as a starting point. Think of this newfound knowledge as a powerful way to actively partner with your doctor. You can walk into your next appointment and start a much better conversation. You can say, "I have been learning about the connection between heavy dinners and kidney load. Can we discuss some lighter evening meal options that are specifically right for my body?"
I love that approach so much because it puts the patient back in the driver's seat. This entire show is really about arming you with much better questions to ask, so that you can build a comprehensive health plan that actually works for your unique body. Doctor, thank you for providing that essential clarity and keeping us all safe. As we start to wrap up our time together today, I want to come back to where we started. John, you talked earlier about that heartbreaking feeling of your life slowly shrinking. Knowing what you know now and living how you live now, what does your life actually feel like today?
My life honestly feels so much bigger and brighter than it did before. Some nights I actually sleep right through until the morning without waking up once. On most regular nights, I might only wake up just one time. But the most important thing is that the heavy mental fog is completely gone. Just the other day, my little grandson came running into the living room. And this time, I was the one who looked at him and said, "Let's go outside and play." Ultimately, this is not really about eating a piece of green papaya for dinner. It is entirely about what that simple habit actually gave me back. It gave me back my mornings and my clear mind. It gave me back my physical energy so I could be present for my family again.
John's story is such a beautiful illustration of the incredible healing power of the body. It shows what happens when we finally understand the real reason behind our symptoms. When you actively choose to ease the heavy burden on your internal organs, your body has a truly remarkable capacity to find its natural resting balance again.
And that remarkable capacity is exactly our greatest hope for you today. The big promise we made at the beginning of this video was never about a magic cure. The promise was about giving you much greater clarity and understanding. Clarity that your pure exhaustion does not have to be your long-term reality. The incredible power to positively change how you feel tomorrow morning is in your hands. It might just begin with making one very small and thoughtful change to your dinner tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this important conversation. Do not just listen to this valuable information and forget about it. Consider trying this simple change tonight and pay attention to how your body feels. We will see you next time as we continue to explore your health journey.